Unsupported men do not fail because they lack dreams. They fail because they try to build a new life without a system. A dream is not a system. Pain is not a system. Anger is not a system. And being doubted is not a business model. If you have no support, emotion is too unstable to build your future on. It rises. It fades. It returns when something hurts you. Then it disappears the moment discipline becomes boring. And when emotion fades, the old life starts calling you back. Old habits, old distractions, old dependency, old weakness disguised as, "I am trying." That is why so many men stay trapped for years. Not because they have no potential, not because they have no hunger, not because they were born without ambition. They stay trapped because they are trying to build freedom with random effort. They wake up angry one day and work hard. Then they wake up tired the next day and disappear. They watch a video, feel powerful for 10 minutes, then return to the same phone, the same excuses, the same people, the same private behavior that keeps destroying their future. That is not transformation. That is emotional entertainment. And if you have no support, you cannot afford emotional entertainment. You need something colder. You need something that still works when nobody claps. You need something that still works when your family does not understand you. You need something that still works when your friends doubt you. You need something that still works when your confidence dies, your mood falls, and the world gives you no sign that you are going to win. You need the zero support operating system. The path is simple, but it is not soft. Kill the rescue fantasy. Command yourself. Enter the ghost phase. Choose one skill. Build proof. Create a clear offer. Contact the market. Survive rejection. Deliver like your reputation is on trial. Turn money into leverage. Build reputation. Become the asset. That is how isolation becomes discipline. Discipline becomes skill. Skill becomes proof. Proof becomes trust. Trust becomes money. Money becomes leverage. Leverage becomes power. And power becomes freedom. But before any of that happens, the first illusion must die. The rescue fantasy. Most unsupported men secretly wait. They say they are ambitious, but underneath the ambition, they are waiting for someone to finally see them, waiting for family to understand, waiting for friends to support them, waiting for a mentor to appear, waiting for confidence, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for life to become fair before they begin acting seriously. This is the hidden weakness, not laziness. Waiting. Waiting is dangerous because it feels innocent, it feels reasonable, it sounds mature. You tell yourself, I am just preparing, I am just thinking, I am just waiting for the right time. But most of the time, you are not preparing. You are protecting yourself from the pain of acting without applause, and the world does not reward the man who waits to be rescued. The world rewards the man who becomes useful, disciplined, valuable, dangerous, and difficult to ignore. The moment you realize no one is coming, you have two choices. You can collapse into bitterness, or you can become your own commander. Most men collapse. They say, nobody supported me. They use abandonment as evidence that they cannot win. They turn neglect into identity. They turn rejection into personality. They turn pain into an excuse to stay weak. But the strategic man sees something different. If no one is coming, no one owns the result. If no one gave you permission, no one can withdraw it. If no one built your path, no one can claim your throne. That is the first awakening. No support is not only a wound, it is also freedom. It means you do not have to ask small minds for permission. It means you do not have to explain your vision to people who benefit from your confusion. It means you do not have to carry the emotional debt of people who never invested in you. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to become undeniable. And the second part of that transformation is self-command. When no one is watching, the real ruler of your life is revealed. Not the version you post, not the version you describe, not the version you imagine you will become someday. The real version, the one who either wakes up or negotiates, the one who either works or escapes, the one who either keeps the promise or breaks it in private. Unsupported men do not have the luxury of weak self-management. If no one is holding you accountable, you must become the accountability. If no one is leading you, you must become the leader. If no one is judging you, you must judge yourself before the world does. This means your life must become governed. Morning discipline, deep work, evening review. No phone controlling your first hour. No vague guilt at night. No pretending that being busy means you are making progress. No lying to yourself because nobody else can see the lie. A man without internal law will always be ruled by impulse. And impulse is not neutral. Impulse wants comfort. Impulse wants distraction. Impulse wants cheap pleasure. Impulse wants delay. Impulse wants to protect your ego from the humiliation of being a beginner. That is why you need structure. Wake up and know what matters. Work before the world gets access to your attention. Review your day before sleep steals the evidence. Ask yourself simple questions. What did I build today? What did I avoid today? What promise did I keep? What weakness did I repeat? What must be corrected tomorrow? This is not motivation, this is command. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. The market will eventually see your results. People will eventually see your proof. But before the world sees anything, you must experience what you really are in private. That is where power begins. Not in public, not in applause, not in the image. In the private court where you are both the ruler and the criminal. You either sentence your weakness or your weakness sentences your future." The third part is the ghost phase. Most people talk their ambition to death. They announce too early. They explain too much. They expose fragile goals to people who cannot protect them. They seek opinions from the fearful. They seek validation from the unqualified. They post hints instead of building proof. They want the feeling of progress before they have earned the evidence of progress. That is why they stay average. They perform ambition. They do not build it. The dangerous man disappears strategically, not to hide, to construct. He stops announcing. He stops explaining. He stops arguing. He cuts low-value social noise. He protects his pressure. He lets silence become a forge. During the ghost phase, you do not need people to believe you. You need receipts. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, one mission, one skill, one body of proof. No begging for encouragement, no begging for encouragement, no emotional speeches about your potential, just construction. Because when you return, you do not return with a promise. You return with evidence. And evidence changes how the world treats you. This is where most unsupported men lose years. Not because they lack talent, because they choose too many paths at once. They call confusion ambition. They call distraction curiosity. They call switching strategies research. But the unsupported man cannot afford scattered effort. He must choose one skill. If you have no money, your first problem is not poverty. Your first problem is that you are unmonetized. That may sound brutal, but it is freedom. Poverty feels like identity. Unmonetized is a diagnosis. It means the market has not yet been given a strong enough reason to pay you, so give it one. Choose a practical skill the market already pays for. Writing, copywriting, YouTube scripting, short-form editing, thumbnail design, lead generation, sales outreach, landing pages, AI workflow setup, something people already buy, something you can practice alone, something you can show proof for quickly, something that can become money, one skill, one market, one attack. Do not chase every trend. Do not build your future on random curiosity. Do not spend 6 months collecting information while producing nothing visible. Pick the skill, set the standard, build the evidence. Then repeat long enough for reality to notice. And now comes the part where unsupported men either become valuable or remain invisible. Proof. No one owes you trust. Not clients, not strangers, not the market, not powerful people. Trust is not a donation. Trust is earned through evidence. This is where beginners fail. They ask for a chance before they create proof. They say they are passionate. They say they are hardworking. They say they just need someone to believe in them. But every desperate beginner says the same thing. The builder does something different. He creates samples. He builds a portfolio with 0 clients. He shows before and after. He explains his thinking. He turns skill into visible evidence. Because invisible ability is almost the same as no ability in the marketplace. People judge what they can see. So show them something. If you want to sell thumbnails, redesign 5 thumbnails from channels in your niche and explain why each change creates more curiosity. If you want to write YouTube videos, break down 3 viral videos and rewrite their openings. If you want to do outreach, find businesses with weak offers and write a sharper message for them. If you want to build AI systems, record a simple workflow that saves time, reduces friction, or increases output. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for clients. Do not wait for belief. Build proof before the door opens. Because proof is how the unsupported man stops begging to be believed. Proof says, I am not asking you to imagine my value, I am showing it to you. That is when you begin to move differently. That is when your confidence stops being emotional. That is when your identity stops depending on support. Because you are no longer saying, please believe in me. You are saying, look at what I have built. Once proof exists, the next problem is clarity. Because proof without a clear offer is like power without direction. You may be skilled, you may be disciplined, you may have samples, you may have evidence. But if a stranger cannot understand what you sell in 10 seconds, you do not have an offer. You have noise. And the unsupported man cannot afford noise. He cannot afford vague language. He cannot afford to sound like everyone else. He cannot say, I help with content. He cannot say, I provide marketing solutions. He cannot say, I do editing, design, writing, strategy, branding, and whatever else you need. That is fog. And the market does not walk toward fog. The market walks toward clarity. Your offer must answer 4 questions fast. Who do you help? What problem do you solve? What result do you create? What pain do you remove? The beginning of a clear offer is simple. I help a specific person achieve a specific result without a specific pain. Not everyone. Not any business. Not people who want growth. Specific person. Specific result. Specific pain. For example, I help fitness coaches turn their raw ideas into YouTube videos that attract serious buyers without wasting 10 hours writing alone. That is clearer. I help small business owners turn weak landing pages into simple pages that explain the offer, build trust, and increase bookings. That is clearer. I help creators redesign their thumbnails so the promise is obvious before the viewer scrolls away. That is clearer. Clarity creates movement. Confusion creates delay. And delay kills money. When you are unsupported, you do not have the luxury of being mysterious. You do not need people to admire your complexity. You need them to understand your value. That is why the next part is contacting the market. This is where many men freeze. They build a little proof. They create a decent offer. Then they sit there waiting to be discovered. That is still the rescue fantasy wearing new clothes. The market is not required to find you. You must enter the market. Cold outreach is not begging when you bring value. It only becomes pathetic when you arrive empty-handed. A real operator does not send generic messages. He observes. He diagnoses. He creates a useful sample. He makes a clear offer. He asks for a small next step. Not a desperate paragraph about his life story. Not a long message begging for a chance. Not a weak compliment followed by a pitch. A strategic message is simple. I notice this. The issue seems to be this. I made a quick example. I can help you do this consistently. Do you want me to send it over? That is not begging. That is contact with value. That is how the unknown man enters the market without permission. He does not ask the world to care about his pain. He shows the world a reason to care about his usefulness. And this is where Machiavelli becomes practical. Power gained through others is unstable. If your entire future depends on someone choosing you out of kindness, you are fragile. But if you build skill, proof, offer, and outreach, you stop depending on kindness. You create leverage. You create reasons. You create pressure. You make it rational for people to respond. And if they do not respond, you do not collapse. Because the next part is surviving rejection. You are not afraid of rejection. You are afraid it will confirm what you secretly believe about yourself. That is why most men stop too early. 5 ignored messages and they collapse. 1 no and they change their identity. 1 objection and they decide the market hates them. 1 week without results and they run back to the old life. Weakness. Rejection is not identity damage. Rejection is market data. Who did you contact? What did you offer? Did they respond? What objection appeared? What pattern repeats? What must be improved? Message, offer, targeting, proof, not identity. If 10 people ignore you, do not say, I am worthless. Say, my message is weak, my target is wrong, my proof is unclear, or my offer is not painful enough. That is how an operator thinks. He does not turn every market signal into emotional self-punishment. He studies the signal, he adjusts, he returns. He lets the market train him without letting the market define him. The unsupported man must become emotionally hard enough to receive feedback without turning it into a personal funeral. Because if you are building from zero, rejection is not an interruption. It is the classroom. Every no is information. Every silence is information. Every objection is information. Every failed attempt shows you where the structure is weak. And once the structure improves, the market begins to respond differently. But getting paid once is not power. Being trusted again is power. That is why delivery matters. The moment someone pays you, your reputation is on trial, not your ego, not your intention, not your backstory, your reputation. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. People judge what they can see. They judge the result. They judge the process. They judge whether you were clear. They judge whether you were late. They judge whether you communicated. They judge whether you made their life easier or heavier. So when someone pays you, do not act like the victory is finished. That is when the real test begins. Confirm the outcome. Define the deadline. Explain the process. Send progress updates. Deliver cleanly. Ask for feedback. Request a testimonial or referral. This is how first money becomes repeat money. This is how one client becomes proof. Proof becomes trust. Trust becomes reputation. Reputation becomes leverage. Most beginners ruin opportunity because they treat payment like the finish line. The strategic man treats payment like the opening of a court case. His reputation is on trial. Every detail is evidence. Every message is evidence. Every delay is evidence. Every correction is evidence. Every result is evidence. And over time, the market starts building an image of you: reliable, serious, useful, clear, dangerous to ignore. That image matters. Because reputation is not decoration. Reputation is compressed trust. It lets people decide faster. It lets strangers approach with less fear. It lets your name travel before you enter the room. And once money enters your life, another test begins. The first money is not for celebration, it is ammunition. Most beginners get paid and immediately spend to feel successful. They buy status, they reward weakness. They try to impress people who did not help them build. They confuse income with freedom. Then they fall back to zero. The strategic man allocates survival, savings, reinvestment, controlled reward. He protects oxygen. He builds a buffer. He reinvests into better tools, better education, better proof, better lead sources, better production speed. Money should make you harder to destroy. If money enters your life and leaves you just as fragile, you misused it. The point is not to look successful for people who doubted you. The point is to become structurally stronger. A man with no buffer is easy to control. A man with no skill is easy to replace. A man with no proof is easy to ignore. A man with no reputation is easy to forget. A man with no system is easy to break. So every dollar must be commanded, not worshipped, not wasted. Commanded. Money must buy time. Money must buy speed. Money must buy tools. Money must buy cleaner thinking. Money must buy stronger positioning. Money must make your next move more dangerous than your last. That is how first money becomes leverage. And leverage is where the unsupported man begins to change categories. At the beginning, he is trying to survive. Then he is trying to become useful. Then he is trying to become trusted. Then he is trying to become known. This is where reputation enters. Your reputation is being built whether you control it or not. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is invisibility. If no one can see your proof, do not complain that no one trusts you. This is why personal brand matters, not vanity. Proof. You post what you know. You post what you are building. You post the problems you solve. You post the results you create. You post the standards you live by. You post your thinking so the market can inspect your mind before it ever speaks to you. You do not post to be admired. You post to become legible. You post so strangers can see evidence. You post so the market can remember. Because unknown value is often treated like no value. That may sound unfair, but reality does not become useful because you complain about it. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge outcomes, not intentions, so stop hiding behind intention. Show outcomes, show process, show proof, show improvement, show the system working in public, not every private detail, not every fragile goal, not emotional noise, evidence, consistent evidence, repeated evidence, evidence until the market stops seeing you as another man with dreams and starts seeing you as an asset." That is the final part. Becoming the asset. At the beginning, you want support. Later, you become support. At the beginning, you want belief. Later, your proof speaks before you do. At the beginning, you want access. Later, value creates access. At the beginning, you fear rejection. Later, rejection becomes data. At the beginning, you have no network. Later, your reputation becomes the network. That is the transformation. From unsupported to undeniable. From isolated beginner to self-built operator. From the man waiting outside the gate to the man building gates of his own. This is what Depths of Psyche is about. Human behavior, power, discipline, money, status, influence, control, client acquisition, wealth, reputation, systems, freedom. But understand the structure clearly. The public videos are the doorway. Here on YouTube, I give you the public lessons, the frameworks, the cold truths, the psychological exposure, the strategic direction. But if you want the deeper roadmap, the full operating system, the direct structure for succeed with zero support, that lives on Patreon. That is where we go deeper. No softness, no motivational decoration, no pretending that life is fair, no begging the world to care about your pain, only the system. How to command yourself, how to choose your skill, how to build proof, how to create your offer, how to contact the market, how to survive rejection, how to deliver, how to turn first money into leverage, how to build reputation, how to become the asset when no one is coming. So subscribe to Depths of Psyche if you want the public lessons. Join Patreon if you are ready for the full. Succeed with zero. Support roadmap. Without censorship, without softness, without excuses. Because if you have no support, you do not need pity. You need a system. No support means no one is coming. A system means you can move anyway. No support, no network, no excuses. Build anyway.